Okay, so the learning outcomes for this session, hopefully by the end of today's session, you will be able to define your research question and actually turn that into a search strategy. So a number of you might already have know what your research question is, but now we're going to start talking about how you can actually turn that into a search strategy. We're also going to talk about using advanced searching techniques to help improve your search strategy. We're going to identify and evaluate database sources. So a lot of you may already know where you're going to search for your literature search, but if not, we're going to point you in the right direction of where you can find a list of databases for your topic. Also going to talk a little bit about conducting citation searching, and some of you may know what citation searching are, and you may already be doing it. If not, we're going to be talking about it today, so you'll learn about that in today's session. It's quite a useful technique to carry out in addition to a standard literature search, and we're also going to show you how to find full text articles. And I've just noticed that our the other moderator, Deirdre, has joined us, so we will be taking it in turns to cover some of the slides. Okay, so just to let you know, I don't know if you've heard about the Researcher Development Framework, but it's a really useful document produced by VTI, and it's basically a series of knowledge and skills that you might want to look at developing in more depth during your time as a researcher. And we map all of our workshops to the Researcher Development Framework. And today, the literature searching workshop maps to the knowledge and intellectual abilities domain, and that covers finding information and evaluating information. So if you are interested in looking at more detail of the Research Development Framework, there is a link on the slide, or you can just Google Researcher Development Framework. Okay, so we would like to now ask you a question just before we start the session properly, and ask you, what are you most concerned about in relation to your literature search? Hopefully you've not got lots of concerns about it, but is there one thing in particular or a couple of things in particular that you're quite worried about or you'd really like to know about in today's session? If you could use the T tool at the top left hand side and click on the screen and just type the one thing or a couple of things that you might be worried about or would like to know more about in today's session. Thank you. Does anyone else like to add anything to the screen? Okay, so oh, thank you. Okay, so a couple of concerns about making sure that you're not going to miss anything or overlooking some key publications. So yeah, we can definitely talk about the searching techniques that you can use to make sure that you're being comprehensive in your search. We're definitely going to cover that today in the session. How to search all the latest papers I want. So hopefully all the tips and techniques that we're going to talk to you about today will allow you to develop a really comprehensive search strategy to make sure that you are finding the latest papers, to find all the information that is related to your topic. The last one, how to organize it properly. So we're not necessarily going to cover that today. I'm not sure whether you mean kind of organizing the search results that you find. Please do elaborate in the chat if you would like to. So that might be linked to using a reference management software such as EndNote. We aren't going to cover using EndNote today, but we do have a separate EndNote webinar that you might like to go to that tells you about how you can organise the literature that you find from your literature search. But we will be talking briefly about how to save your searches within the databases, which is really important and can help you make sure that your literature searches are properly organised. But please do put anything else in the chat if anything comes to you. Okay. Okay, I'm going to pass on to Deirdre now to cover the next bit.
Hello everyone, I'm the other moderator in this session, and I'm just going to talk about structuring your search and breaking down your research question. So assuming you had a question, research question that was, to what extent does violence on television affect teenagers? what you would need to do is you would need to break down this research question into key concepts, because the databases work best with key concepts. So in this situation, for this question, the concept 1 might be violence, the concept 2 might be television, and the third one would be teenagers. There may be fewer than 3 concepts or more than 3 concepts. It just depends on the research question. And there's example of some examples in the handouts that you should have. If anyone has any questions, please ask in the chat. So we're going to look at some more examples of breaking down a research question. So for this question, we have the research question is, does coaching help improve the mental health and well-being of PhD students? And with this, I want you to have a go again using the text tool, the T at the top of the screen, and type in 3 concepts into one search box, separating them by commas of what you think the 3 concepts for this question is. I'll give you a couple of little while to do this. Okay, so you've all got this sort of concept. So the 3 concepts would be the coaching, the mental health, well-being, and PhD students. So thank you everybody for writing the concepts there. We'll just do one more example. This example is we're going to have a research question that says, examining the barriers women face in taking leadership positions in higher education. So again, if you use the T tool, the text tool, and use commas to write your concepts. So again, thanks for all your answers. They're looking great there. Some people have broken it down into 3 concepts, and some people have broken it down into 4 concepts, which is fine. You can experiment with breaking it down into 3 or 4 concepts. So it looks like you all have understood that. So now we're going to think of synonyms. So with a search strategy, we need to think of synonyms or other words that can be used to describe our individual concepts. In this example, we have, to what extent does violence on television affect teenagers? So we need to use synonyms or alternative words because various different authors may be using various different terms to describe a concept, and we don't want to miss out on any articles because we haven't thought of the terms they might be using. So for this example, we have, for concept 1, we have violence, concept 2, and concept 3 is, or concept 2 is television, and concept 3 is teenagers. So in the next slide, we show you the concepts that can be used to describe, or the terms that, the synonyms that can be used to describe these concepts. So for violence, we have brutality, aggression, and anger. And for television, we have TV. And for teenagers, we have children, adolescents, young people, or teens.
Thanks, Deirdre. So it's really important to do that, because if you were just to type violence and television and teenagers, you would find some papers, and you'd probably find some relevant papers, but you would miss out all the papers where an author may have used a slightly different synonym. So if an author has actually used the word brutality instead of violence, you would have missed that out. So by finding these extra synonyms and adding them into your search, it really helps you to be more comprehensive and widens your search to make sure that you're finding all the possible papers that is actually related to your particular research question question. So this part is really important part of the process of doing your literature search. So once you've broken down your research question into its main concepts, which we have done, and then we've thought of some possible synonyms for each of those particular concepts, we now need to start working at how we're actually going to turn that into an actual search strategy. And this is where we need to start thinking of using Boolean operators, and some of you may have used these before, some that might be new to some of you. So the main ones that we would be using within our search would be the and the or Boolean operators. So we always use the or Boolean operator to combine our synonyms within the same concept together. And then at the end of our search, that is when we would combine our concepts using and. I'm going to show you an example for our example question here. So our example question for this webinar is, to what extent does violence on television affect teenagers? So you can see that we would combine our synonyms within each concept using or. So we're going to type in violence or brutality or aggression or anger. We're then going to type in television or TV, and then we're going to type in teenagers or children or adolescents or young people or teen. And then we're going to combine these three concepts using and. So we're widening our search by using the or Boolean operator. We're saying we don't mind whether our article has violence or brutality or aggression. We're widening that search. And then at the end, we're focusing our search just on our three concepts. So we want our papers to include any of our violence terms and any of our television terms and any of our teenagers or children terms. Okay, to try and explain this a little bit more, we're going to just do a little activity, and I want you to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen if you can answer yes to the following questions. And this activity is designed to help you have a think about how using Boolean would affect the number of searches, the number of papers that you would find in your end result. So if you can all find your raise hand button at the bottom there and get ready to click on it, if you can answer yes to the following question. So, have you ever had a dog? If you have had a dog, please raise your hand now and I will count how many people have ever had a dog. Any more people with a dog? So I think we had 3 people there that has ever had a dog. Okay, so we had 3 people who's ever had a dog. Have you ever had a cat? Please raise your hand. Okay, so we've got more people. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who've ever had a cat. Okay, right. So we had 3 people who've had a dog, 6 people who've had a cat. Thank you. If you could lower your hand, brilliant. So next question: have you ever had a cat or a dog? So please put your hand up if you've ever had a cat or a dog. Okay, so we're actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So because we've done cat or dog, we're increasing the number of you who have actually had a dog. So we've had 7 people who've had a cat or a dog. So if you just keep in the back of the mind how this might affect your results if you're searching for a paper, for example, that you were searching for papers about cats or dogs. If you put cat or dog, you would get more results. Okay, and finally, have you ever had a cat and a dog? So I've only got 2 people who've ever had a cat and a dog. So you can see that by using that Boolean operator and, we're actually reducing the numbers that we are finding. And this is what happens within a search. When we use our oring, we start to increase the amount of results we find. But then if you start using and, then it really focuses on those papers or those people, for this example, who've got both of those terms in the search in their paper. So if you think about this in terms of searching, so this is just an example. In Google Scholar, if you actually typed cats or dogs, you're going to be finding over 3 million. But if you type cats and dogs, you just find over 1.2 million. So it's still huge amounts of results, but just to show you, just to kind of give you an example of how using and or can affect your results. Oring widens your search and should be used for your synonyms within one concept. And then anding, you would and your concepts together to focus your final search. Okay, please do ask any questions about Boolean if anything doesn't make sense. I'm going to actually show you how to do this within a database in a minute. So if it's not clear, hopefully it will become clear soon. Okay, before I do a little demo of how to do a search, there's some other keyword searching techniques that you might want to incorporate into your search that will help your search to be really comprehensive and hopefully find all those papers. So there's worries at the beginning of people missing papers. Hopefully these techniques will help you to find everything on your topic. So the first one you may have heard of is truncation, and that's just the asterisk symbol. So this helps you find variant endings of a particular word. So in the example on the slides, we've used therap asterisk. So therap asterisk would find therapy or therapies or therapeutic. So it's really useful because you don't actually have to type out therapy or therapies or therapeutic, but it also picks up any variant endings that you might not necessarily have thought of. So if you've also got any words that could be plural, you need to be using the asterisk, because if not, you're going to miss out all those papers where they've used a plural or there is a variant ending of the word. So you're almost always definitely going to be using truncation within your search strategy. The next one is the wildcard, and this is the question mark. So this searches for a character or no character, but that character could be absolutely anything. So it's quite useful for British and American spelling. So for example, in the slide, we've showed you that behaviour, and if we change the U for a question mark, it would actually find both the American and the English spelling of the words, the British spelling of the words, sorry. So you need to think, once you've written all your names out, you need to think if there's any instances where you would need to use this, because if there is American spelling and you don't include that in your search strategy, you're going to miss out the kind of American papers. So you need to make sure that you add that in. Also phrase searching. So the last one is phrase searching. If you are searching for a phrase, for example, young people, you need to make sure that you put that phrase in speech marks. If you don't put it in speech marks, the database may search for a paper that has young in the one sentence and people in the next sentence. They're not actually connected. So if you've got any phrases within your search strategy, please do put them in speech marks, and it will only find papers where those two words are right next to each other. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you a quick demo, but please do put any questions that you have in the chat. If anything doesn't make sense, we can go over it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this search within Web of Science. Now, Web of Science is a multidisciplinary database. Some of you may have heard of it. And because it's multidisciplinary, you probably, whatever your topic, you probably will want to be searching Web of Science. So I'm going to show you how to carry out a search within Web of Science, but this is a screenshot of what this search will look like. But I'm actually going to try and do this for you. So I'm going to just try and share this screen. This is where we access our databases. So to get to the library website, if you just Google Leeds University Library, or if you just type in library.leeds.ac.uk, you will get here. And this is where you need to be typing in the name of your database. Whichever database you're searching, you can type it in here. And just click on the search button. Hopefully that should be a little bit bigger now. Okay, so it gives us some suggested databases, and here it's suggesting that we go to Web of Science. So this is where we need to be clicking, go to Web of Science. And it will usually ask you to log in with your username and password, just your university one. I'm already logged in, so it's not asking me, but it would do if you haven't logged in before. So this is Web of Science, and this is where we would need to start typing our search. And I'm just going to start typing my first concept, which is the violence one. So I'm going to actually type in violent, and I'm going to use asterisk because it could be violent or violence. I'm then going to type in or because we're using our Boolean operator or. I'm going to type in aggress asterisk because it could be aggressive or aggression. And I'm going to type in brutal because it could be brutality or brutal, or anger. Okay, so that's my first concept. I'm now then going to go on to my next concept, which is going to be TV or television. I've already done this, so it's suggesting it to me. So television or TV. It doesn't matter if your Boolean operator isn't in a capital letter, that's fine. You can do either. And then you just need to remember, if you're using more than one concept, you need to just change this drop down box. So the first one automatically defaults to topic. The topic basically searches in the title, abstracts, or keyword of the paper. So if you're searching Web of Science, topic is probably the best one to search for your search terms. And then this last one, I'm going to do child or adolescent. Be adolescence or adolescence, I'm going to use asterisk. I'm going to type in young people, but it's a phrase search, so I'm going to use asterisk, and also teen. And I'm going to use asterisk because it could be a teenager. And I just need to remember to change the drop down box to topic. And you'll see here that it's actually defaulted to combining my concepts with and. So we just need to make sure that this is stayed as and, because we've used or within our synonyms, and then we use and to combine our concepts. So if you were wanted to limit to a particular date range, you could do here, but I'm just going to use the default one. And all I do is click on search. Just to say that in the email that I've hopefully you all got with the link to the webinar in, which I'm not quite sure what went wrong, but there is a link to the to a handout which has these instructions in it. So don't worry if you forget. Okay, so basically it tells us it's found just over 1,000 that relates to our topic, that has our keywords in. And if you scroll down, you'll see that it highlights our keywords within yellow. So if you were read one of the titles and you were actually interested in one of those topics, you can just click on the view abstract, and it will give you the little abstract here to tell you a little bit more about the paper. So this is where it's quite useful to start reading the abstracts and noting down any other keywords that you might not have thought of that's relevant to your search, and you would then go back and add them into your search. So searching is quite an iterative process, so you may need to go back and alter and edit your search after you've done an initial search, because it might lead you to some other keywords that you might want to add in. So once you've done your search and you're happy with it, you might want to check in whether we have full text access to some of these papers. So in whatever database that you are in, to check whether we have full text access, you need to be clicking on a button, a check at Leeds button. So it's usually near to the reference. It's sometimes on the right hand side. It depends what database you're in. In Web of Science, it's just underneath, and you can just click on check at Leeds. I'm just going to randomly check one here. I'm just going to do this environmental research one. I'm going to click on check at Leeds, and basically what it does, it connects up to our library catalogue and tells you whether we have access to it online. So it's saying we do have environmental research from 1995, and to access it we can click through to the available online or through this link here. This download PDF one, I'm just going to try it and see if it actually works from that. It seems to be working. All right, it will then ask me to log in, but you can actually get direct access to the PDF from this initial link. But if that download PDF button isn't there, just click on the available online and it'll take you through to the paper. So just remember that this is just Web of Science. Unfortunately, I can't show you how to search every single database, but they're all very similar, and the principles of searching are the same. You need to break your research question down, think of synonyms, and within the search box you need to be using your or to combine your synonyms, and then ands to combine your concepts. So it might look slightly different than Web of Science, but that's the basic concepts that you need to be, the basic principles you need to be following. If you are struggling with searching a particular database and it's really confusing and you're not quite sure where you should be searching, please do contact us and we can help you to sort that problem out. So once you've done your search, in whatever database that you're in, you need to be saving that search. So this helps you manage your searching and organize your searching. So if every database you're searching, you need to save your search, and then you know that it's saved in there and you won't need to come in and type the whole search again. So to save your search, you need to be going to search history. And here is our search, and I can save this search by just clicking on Save Search History. Now I'm logged in already. If you haven't got a Web of Science account, or whatever database you're in, if you haven't got an account for that database, you just need to create one. At this point, it will ask you to log in or create one. It's free to create one, and it just means you can save your search in all the databases. So you'd give your search a name, and then you can decide whether you want it to send you email alerts. This is quite useful if you want to be kept up to date with any new research that's being published. So every time a paper gets put on the database that matches my search, it will email me to let me know. So that's a really good way of keeping up to date. And you just need to click on Create Alert, and then it's saved within your Web of Science account. So we recommend that you do that for every search that you do within every database. It just helps you manage your searching a little bit better. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now and just come back to the webinar. Okay, Johnny, I've seen your question. Do we not have an account linked to our uni accounts? If you mean do we not have a Web of Science account linked to our uni accounts, when you log into Web of Science, you just use your username, your university username and password. That's fine. That gets you access to Web of Science. But if you actually want to save a search in Web of Science, you just need to create a Web of Science account within Web of Science, and that's the same for every database. But when you initially log in, you just use your username. Your university username and password. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to share the slides. Just bear with me. I'll just navigate to the right one. Sorry, I see you've just checked. Let me just see Johnny's question. So the first step is getting through. Yeah, the first step is getting through the paywall, because the university pays to get access to all these databases. So that's how it knows that you are from the University of Leeds, is you log in with your university username and password. But once you're in, if you want to save a search, then you have to have a Web of Science account, and that's free. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Deirdre now.
Okay, so now we're going to think about where to look for articles for your particular research question. So you've broken down your search into concepts, and now we're going to, Sally's shown you Web of Science. We're going to think about other places you could search. So now I want everybody using the T tool again to write in the white space about where you usually search, because this might be quite interesting for everybody else to get ideas of sources to search. So which databases, websites, whichever you search. So I can see we've got like a number of people are saying Google Scholar, people are saying PubMed, Web of Science, Scopus, so lots of SciFinder. DBPL, I haven't heard of that one, so I will put that in if you want to write in the chat box what that is. That would be really, really useful. So I can see there's lots of different places where people go to search. So in terms of where to search, there's no one there's no one source that's the best. What we recommend is you search a number of different sources. I'm just going to talk a minute about what the different sources are useful for. So Google Scholar is really, really good at the beginning of a project. If you just want to get a quick overview of your topic and see kind of a few key articles on the topic, and to see the terminology being used to describe the topic, Google Scholar is really good for that. It's also good at the end of this process to do some citation searching, which I'll talk about in a minute. Various publisher databases such as Science Direct are useful as well, although they'll only include articles from that particular publisher. It's also useful to search databases such as Web of Science or SCOS, which are multidisciplinary databases which will include articles from lots of different publishers. Similarly, other databases such as Medline, Embase will include articles from lots of different publishers. So what we would generally recommend is that you search a range of sources. If anyone has any questions about sources, please ask in the chat. Now we're going to go on and talk a bit about the library subject pages. So the subject pages on the library website are a really good place to start for thinking about sources for your topic. So on the library homepage, you can scroll down to the subject pages, and then there'll be a link to subject pages for all the different subjects and an A to Z list. And you click the link and you'll see key databases and other sources. And in many cases, there'll also be guides to using the particular databases. So what I'm going to do a demo on how to go into the library website and access the pages.
So I'm just going to share my screen with you and show you how to access the databases. So again, just Google Leeds University Library or go to library.leeds.ac.uk. And if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see under Student Essentials here is the subject database link. So if you just click on the subject databases page, this is basically a list of subjects, and you really just need to find the one that's most relevant to you. So I just pick, for example, environment here, and on this page, it will give you a list of key databases that are relevant to the subject of environment. So it's a really good place to start. If you're not quite sure which databases are relevant for you to be searching, find your subject page and you need to have a look through here. And it basically just gives you a list of databases, and it gives you a little description of what each database covers. So you can then read this description and decide whether it's appropriate for you to be searching this database. You won't be searching all of these. You might just want to pick the key ones that you think are the most relevant and go away and search them. And it's really important to remember that if your research question crosses two disciplines, you need to be searching for the subject page on each of the disciplines. So for example, if you were searching for your research area was about looking at hip replacements, but looking at kind of the development of those and the structure of those, you might look at two different research subject pages to make sure that you're covering the research areas of both those topics rather than just looking at medicine. So you need to have a think. If you've got a cross-cutting research area, you need to make sure that you're looking at the subject pages for both of those different areas rather than just one of them. Okay, I'm just going to share the slides again, but we recommend that you need to be searching a number of different databases, and the best place to try and find that list of databases is to look on the subject page for your subject area.
So citation searching, so that helps you find out who has cited a paper, and it's useful for finding more papers on a similar subject, and also for trying to figure out how an idea has developed over time. It's more and more becoming important as the databases are sort of getting more information. It can be hard to find relevant papers, so people are using citation searching as a really useful way of finding relevant papers. In terms of the tools you can use for citation searching, three key tools are Web of Science, Google Scholar, and Scopus. So we recommend that you use these three tools to do some citation searching, and it's possibly best to do all three. So you can do citations on key authors, you can do citations searching on relevant papers, and you can also use some of these tools like in Web of Science to find kind of related or similar articles. So we would recommend using citation searching as well as database searching.
I'll just do an example in Web of Science because I think I'm already logged into there, so that might just be easy, and then I can do a quick Google Scholar one. Right, okay, so in Web of Science, hopefully you should be able to see that. So I'm just going to do my search again and look at my results. So you basically, if you had a particular article that you were trying to do a citation search on, I'm actually going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to use the example in the slide actually, because so you might have a list of papers that you want to do some citation searching on. So you would come into Web of Science. I'm just going to clear my search boxes by clicking on reset. So you would need to type in your title of your paper, and actually I remember the last time I searched for this it didn't come up in Web of Science, and I don't know why, but I'm going to try and find it again. So if you had this paper called Barriers to Women Leaders in Academia, you just search for it within Web of Science by typing in the actual title of the paper, and I'm going to click on search. And last time it didn't come up with anything. Yeah, I don't know why it's been, I think for some reason this, oh no, here we go, here it is. Right, number 5. So here is my paper that's really relevant to me, and I want to see who has actually cited this paper because it might lead me through to other papers that I might not necessarily have found for whatever reason in my initial literature search. So you can see here on the right hand side there is this time cited area here, and it said this paper has been cited 51 times. So if you actually click on the 51, it will take me through to those 51 papers that has actually cited my key paper. And this can be really useful because, as I said, it might lead you to these papers which you may have found in your initial literature search, and that's fine, but you may, for whatever reason, might lead you to some papers that you haven't found in your literature search. So Web of Science is a good place to do this. Scopus is a good place to do this as well. So Scopus is another multidisciplinary database. It's similar to Web of Science but has slightly different coverage. So we'd recommend checking Web of Science, Scopus, and also Google Scholar. So I'll just quickly show you how to do it in Google Scholar. So I'm just going to go through to Google Scholar, and you just type your title in there again, and here it is, and you can see that actually instead of on the right hand side like it is in Web of Science, it's just underneath and this cited by link, and you can see that actually it's got a lot more papers in Google Scholar. This is saying it's actually been cited by 137 papers. And Google Scholar is quite useful because it can take you through to some kind of grey literature that has cited your key paper. So not necessarily journal articles, it might be a report or a book or another sort of literature, grey literature. So definitely have a look on Google Scholar as well as Scopus and Web of Science. I usually just check Google Scholar, but if I was being really thorough, I would also have a look in Web of Science as well. Okay, so yeah, what we would advise you to have a go at doing now, because you are not going to be an expert literature searcher just from coming along to this webinar, but we've given you the kind of basic principles of carrying out a literature search and the basic things that you need to think about when you are developing your literature search. So what we would recommend that you do now is go away and have a think about your own literature searches. You might have one literature search, you might have more than one depending on your research. So have a think about what is your research question, and start pulling out those main concepts of your research question and thinking about the synonyms, the keywords that you would search for within those main concepts. And then start to think about how you would actually translate that within the database. So how would you structure that search within a database? It's okay having a list of keywords, but how are you actually going to put it into a database? So where are you going to use your ands and your ors? Where are you going to put your truncation? Are you going to use speech marks because you've got phrase searching? You need to just make sure that it's adapted so you can put it within a database. Have a think about what databases you would search. So have a look at your subject page and start making a note of those databases that you need to search for your research area. So please do let us know if you have any questions about searching after the session. We can also give you feedback on your search strategies. So if you have developed your search strategy and you've run it in a database such as Web of Science and you're not quite sure whether it's a good search, whether you need to add anything more to it, we can give you feedback on that. So what you need to do is email us on this email address on the slides. Hopefully you've all got a copy of these slides in the emails that you've been sent from Eventbrite. And you need to tell us what your research area is and include a copy of your search strategy. So it could be a screenshot of Web of Science. So don't just send us a list of keywords, send us how have you actually turned that into a search strategy. So hopefully today we've talked about how you can turn your research question into a search strategy. We've told you about some advanced search techniques like truncation, the question mark, which is the wildcard, and the phrase searching. We've talked about some of those techniques that can help you improve your strategy. We've talked briefly about how you would identify the sources to search and the differences between those sources. We've also told you about citation searching and how that is a really useful technique to use in addition to your initial literature search. And we've shown you how to use the Check at Leeds button to find full text articles. So, if you do want any more information or contact us, please do contact us on the email address. I've just realised we've still got our phone number for our office, but we are not there at the moment, obviously, so you're best to get us on email. Or on the website, we've put the link there. We have got very comprehensive literature searching pages that takes you step by step through how to do a literature search. So if you do forget about anything that we've covered today, you can check on the web page and it should be covered on there. We also do other webinars. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we do the EndNote one. So if you are interested in learning about how you can actually manage your results from your databases, so if you've searched kind of 5 databases and you've got results in all of them, how do you manage all those? We can tell you how to use EndNote to do that. And we do run some other webinars as well. So do book onto those if you would like to. Thank you very much, and please do contact us if you need any support.